People like to say, have a good day, and it's a nice sentiment, but it's a fixed perspective that can put a lot of pressure on us. It's also really hard to define from person to person. What about instead if we ask ourselves, how can I have a better day? At work, at home, in life? That's what this show is all about. The Have a Better Day podcast comes to you from Boone, a personalized coaching platform that helps businesses everywhere to support the whole humans, which are their employees. We have our pulse on what employees are dealing with in today's workplace, and we want to share those insights with you. Welcome to the Have a Better Day podcast. Allyship and inclusion are essential for creating a supportive and welcoming environment for LGBTQ individuals, both in the workplace and in our personal lives. By recognizing our shared experiences and actively pursuing allyship, we can foster a culture of belonging and contribute to the well-being of our LGBTQ friends, colleagues, and loved ones. In honor of Pride Month, we are joined by the amazing Boone coach, Cator Sparks, who is a renowned coach for men with a specialty in the GBTQ community and an extensive experience in helping individuals and organizations create inclusive environments. Cator has a deep understanding of the challenges faced by the LGBTQ community and has implemented successful strategies to promote allyship and create lasting change. Cator, we are thrilled to have you share your insights with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Alex. It's an honor.
All right. Well, Cator, we're so happy to have you here today. And maybe just as a starting point, Cator, can you just tell us a little bit about your background and I guess just what inspired you to focus on coaching men and more particularly the GBTQ community?
Absolutely. It's such an honor to be here, Alex. I've been coaching with Boone since day one, and It's been such a treat and a real thrill. So honored to do this together. So yeah, my coaching history, I was a men's fashion writer in New York and fashion editor. I wrote for all sorts of people like the New York Times and Vanity Fair and Style.com. I ran a website called The Manual for 8 years. And then I ended up moving away from that job. And then I had a marriage that ended in divorce. And I was kind of like, what next? Where do I go? And I kind of had this, I would call it not a midlife crisis, but a midlife blossoming. Like, wow, what is next? Because I was so scared of I'm too old to start something new. I just have to keep writing for the rest of my life, even though It's not calling me like it used to. And I found coaching. I had a coach who's amazing. She's in Sedona. And I always loved what we did together. And I thought, I wonder if that's something I can do. And talked to a couple of people, talked to some other coaches, talked to her. She's like, you'd be an amazing coach. So I just jumped right in the saddle and went to CTI and got my coaching accreditation and started. And, they always said I needed a niche. And so I immediately thought men, one, because I was a men's editor. I enjoyed connecting with the men, the men's designers and then male artists, all these different people I would connect with. And I know that we need that connection as men. And then especially as a gay man, I know that it was shocking to me that in 43 years, I had never spoken to another gay man as a coach or a therapist. And when I did, I realized wow, there's a deeper connection here that I didn't even fathom. So I wanted to offer that to other men. And here we are.
I love that story. And, one of the things we were talking about was just the idea around allyship in the workplace, which has obviously evolved a ton, particularly in the last 5 years. And I'd love to just hear more about that. And I think maybe as a starting point, Cator, can you just talk about when we think about allyship, what are your thoughts around how important it is to recognize both the similarities and the differences around what it means around allyship and whether it be the straight community versus the LGBT community? How does that look in terms of allyship?
Yeah. Wow. How long do we have? My biggest thing with the queer community is that we're not a monolith. And I know you know that, but, I can't say, oh, this is how we all want to be or treated, because there's, we're just like, I remember my dad used to call me and be like, what do you guys think of Arabs? I'm like, oh my God. I can't explain. That is not a question I can answer. And neither of us are monoliths. So it's so complex. And I was just talking to Sada Simone, who's this incredible wellness coach, a spiritual healer. And, he was talking about how much, connecting to the queer community for a lot of straight people can be a discomfort. There's a discomfort of like, oh, what is non-binary? Oh, what is trans? Oh, what is this guy wearing a pearl earring? Like what that can be discomfort for people. And so leaning into that discomfort, and that's what we do a lot in coaching, right? Leaning in that discomfort and saying like, what is it? What's in that discomfort that we need to work on, that we need to process? And where do you feel that in your body? A lot of that somatic healing. And so I just think that's so important as allies, is really being like, you know what, if I feel uncomfortable here, I'm going to lean into it. And you can even say it, hey, I'm not sure what pronoun should I use here? Or I've never met another trans person, like, and don't treat them like it's, that we're an open book in a school, but like, maybe if you feel comfortable around someone, like, hey, can you tell me about your experience? Or, are you open for a dialogue about your community and how I can learn more?
Yeah. And one of the things that you were telling me about was just in having some of these conversations in the gay community, it was kind of striking to you how there have been so many shared experiences that are the same for straight and gay, men in particular, but more broadly. And maybe just talk a little bit more about what are some of those shared experiences. I know talk a lot about shame, and I know that's something I've dealt with in my life. So can you maybe talk a little bit more about how we can better understand these shared experiences? Because I feel like that's a big void in the communication and the dialogue.
100%. Yes, I work with a lot of men's groups and men's retreat spaces. And so what I really realized, I work with a lot of men's retreat groups, and, sitting in a circle with 45 men who are mostly straight, and so many of them bring up shame. And I'm like, wow, this is, very similar that what, we talk about in the queer community of that shame, the shame of, but yet it's similar yet different, because my shame is, politicians tell me I'm not good enough, hiding in the closet because I'm scared, the fear of coming out to my parents, or whatever. There's so many layers of shame that the queer community can have. Where with straight men, and also with straight men, though, it can be that shame of I'm not masculine enough for my dad. Like I started crying, he told me to man up, or he told me, I couldn't be an artist. I had to be, had to learn how to use a gun, whatever it is. This shared connection of shame, or I'm not a good enough father. I'm not a good enough husband. I feel shame that I'm not, I'm not good enough at business, whatever that can be. It was kind of really beautiful to realize that gay men and straight men both wrestle with this not good enough.
Yeah.
And that can be a beautiful connection that we can connect on and grow together, where if we think that we're, this guy who's, loves hunting and wears camo every day, with this guy who personally might be, non-binary and has purple hair, we both have this shared connection. And that can be really beautiful for us to connect on and grow and learn from each other.
Yeah. I think there is this idea of not being good enough is a universal issue that everybody deals with in some capacity. And it's interesting to think about how we can think about being vulnerable and authentic through that lens of not being good enough. And I guess to that end, Cator, like, how have you seen vulnerability and, authentic connection break down some of these boundaries around discomfort and whatnot, and really create just a new level of understanding amongst the straight and gay community?
Yeah, it's really listening, listening to what each other has to say. Don't talk over each other. Well, this is a great coaching thing. You really have, that full depth of really listening to someone, watching their body language, feeling what they're feeling, having that compassion for them.
Yeah.
And once you start hearing other people's stories and understand that we are all in the same place, just trying to be better people and trying to love ourselves more, it takes away so much of that, what you're wearing, who you are, who you're having sex with, whatever. It's just we're both human trying to make a connection and trying to grow and be better people.
Yeah, I love that. And
that sounds so basic, but as we know in our society, how how fraught it is, and with all these bills going forward about, anti-LGBTQ things, that wow, if these people could just sit down and talk to the community and get to know them better, understand them better.
100%. And I think that brings us into this idea of like, how do we think about allyship in action? And, obviously we're in Pride Month right now, but as you think about what allyship looks like in day to day, whether it be in the workplace or outside of the workplace, you see a lot of companies, we call it like rainbow washing their logos. And, I know that was something that Boone did and we have still done with previous Pride Months in the past. So like, how do you think about really putting allyship into action and not just, creating a month to celebrate Pride Month?
Yeah, I love Pride Month. We worked hard to have this. So I want to see those rainbows everywhere. I feel like people are kind of pulling back from that because they don't want to be seen as rainbow washing. But we have social media. We will get you if we know you are rainbow washing. I can't remember who it was Doritos or something that like, oh, they had rainbows everywhere, but they were donating to some right-wing politician or something like that.
Yeah.
The world is too small for us not to see it. But I love that. I love that everyone puts rainbows on their logo in June, because that's a beautiful thing. That's something we worked hard for. It's a beautiful way to have visibility. But yes, do not roll up that rainbow carpet at the end of June. Keep that going. And what that means is, having those conversations at work, supporting queer businesses and small businesses. And like, if you need to buy, shirts for your company, is there a queer-owned business you can buy those from, or flowers for an event, or catering for an event, or an event space, also, being aware around, the water cooler, what's appropriate and what's not to be talking about, a big thing I always say, which I learned during Black Lives Matter from Black folks, is like, please advocate for us in rooms that we are not allowed in or invited in. And, if you're in a corporate boardroom with a bunch of, old straight white guys who are saying something homophobic, speak up. Yeah. Because I'm not there to defend myself, but if you're there to change some minds, how beautiful is that? Yeah. And also just, understanding the diversity in your organization, understanding pronouns, understanding trans rights, understanding, gender-free bathrooms. We all love that. So it's there's so many ways that we can connect to the queer community. That's not just a month-long event, that can be year-round.
Yeah. And I'm curious, Cator, from your perspective, obviously there's been a lot that has changed over the last 5 years in this arena. And we saw a huge push into DE&I and creating more inclusive work environments throughout COVID and now as well. What have been some of the biggest themes that you've seen over the last 3 to 5 years that you would highlight in terms of, concrete steps that organizations have really been able to take in these areas as it relates to inclusivity and creating meaningful change?
I think one of them is coaching. More and more companies are bringing on coaching companies to, like Boone, to create a safe space. A lot of my clients through Boone are queer. And it's a space where, whether they want to say like, hey, I didn't feel very appreciated at my job today, let's talk about that, or at home or with my partner or whatever. But, they have a space to talk. And that is a huge help for mental health in our community. Or, a bill just passed today. I want to process that. I feel really sad. I'm scared. And so I think that is a big one. I do see, more and more corporations doing more and more advocacy. You see them not just in the pride parades, but in, doing, donating to nonprofits, doing a collab with someone to raise awareness. Also, again, like the bathrooms, having, pronouns on signatures is a big help. And I really, I'm seeing a lot of just more exposure.
Yeah.
More questions, more dialogue. And I think that's so important. But it is a diverse group of people who are speaking. When we see a video about a company and it's a diverse group of people being represented in that video. Yeah. How great does that feel to me to see two guys holding hands?
Yeah. And I think, obviously not trying to talk too much about Boone here, but I have really felt like, particularly in this area, but really, if you think about anybody within an organization, everybody has their own thing that they're going through, whether it be personally or professionally. And our job is to create that safe space for them and create an inclusive environment no matter what they're going through. And so we really pride ourselves on being able to provide that diverse range of safe space, whether you're straight, gay, trans, whatever it may be. We are going to provide a truly personalized experience for you to be able to help you process what you're dealing with personally and professionally. So, I think a lot of the challenges with providing like a company-wide education or something that is broader is like, as somebody who is in that minority, does it feel personalized to me? And does this really feel like a safe space? I think that's where coaching really comes in. Where like you have this confidential space to be able to process what you're dealing with in a really unique sort of way. And I guess, along those lines, how do you feel like education and open dialogue have been continuing to play a bigger and bigger role, Cator? Because I know that's been something that has also been evolving at the company level. So like, what's your take on education and just overall dialogue around this arena?
Yeah, I think that's huge. And again, it is not just queer people. It's, it's Black folks, it's BIPOC, it's everybody. So, one minority is not just speaking for everybody. And I think that's so important and it's so helpful. And I am seeing more and more of that in the community of organizations run by queer, BIPOC, people of color that are going around and creating change, and offering a space for people to ask those uncomfortable questions. Yeah. I've even hosted a podcast with another gay friend of mine that we didn't call it this, completely, but we didn't call it this officially, but it was like Ask a Gay. Like, we're two gay guys. Anyone who wants to come on and ask a question, like, this is not how this is not an everyday event, but we feel this is a safe space. If you want to ask about, a coming out story or what it's like, to be us, again, we're not a monolith, but our personal stories that can really help people understand a broader idea of a community.
100%. Yeah. I love the AMA. We found that to be really powerful in our, just different corners of our business as well. So I think that's a really good way of just giving people an opportunity to learn and hear more about these sorts of stories. And I guess, Cator, as we wrap up, if you're just a listener who's in the workplace trying to be a better ally today, what would be the top 3 pieces of tangible advice you'd give them in terms of how to become a better ally? I think you've shared some really good nuggets for us. And then I want to hear 3 nuggets for just an everyday listener in the workplace, and then 3 nuggets for HR leaders who are trying to make, I guess, organizational movements across their company.
Nice. Listen to the community and do your homework. Read. There's plenty of beautiful books out there. I mean, The Velvet Rage is one that I don't let any gay client not read that. It's by Alan Downs. It's really talks about our gay shame and, how we process that through decades and decades and what to do about it. There's so many, TV shows. We're Here on HBO is a beautiful show to watch with 3 drag queens going to small towns and, going against the grain of some of the people who are anti, yet finding the people who are there, queer people who are there, who need to spread their wings and find joy and connection. And I mean, I dirty cry every time, so really doing more of the work of looking around, asking the questions, without, you don't need to go to a person who's wearing a rainbow and be like, hey, you're gay. Let me know it. Tell me everything. Like, a little awkward. We wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But, as I said, if all of your friends are straight and white, do more to find diversity, whether it's joining book clubs or organizations or other ways to bring more diversity into your life. Because once you have that diversity into your life, you're better going to understand all these communities and who they are and what they represent and what, and their belief systems. And I would say that for HR, hiring a more diverse group of people, having coaches so that the community can feel safe, having town halls, having these, groups come in that are diverse to speak to the organization. where they can ask questions and learn. Because I get it. A lot of people live in a very, straight white community, and they don't know where to find these people and how to do it. And so, sometimes we do have to bring in people into a corporation to kind of share those, whether it's on Zoom or in their small town, to really help them understand that diversity.
Yeah. And I think, so much of our worlds have come into this. How do we get out of our own bubbles that we're living in today? And I think that has become ever more prevalent throughout COVID, where it seems like we're all in our own echo chambers. And it's like, how do we step outside of that comfort zone, step outside of the bubble, gain unique, diverse perspectives on just everything that's going on in the world? So I think those are really good nuggets, Cator. Thank you for sharing. And I guess just lastly, our listeners, where can they find you?
CatorSparksCoaching.com, CatorSparks coaching.com. Yeah, and I'm Cator Sparks on Instagram. So those are my two main places. I try to post a blog post about once a month about things that are coming up for me in the wellness world. So please follow along.
Awesome. And of course, if you're working with Boone, we'll help connect the dots if you're looking to find Cator. So Cator, thank you so much for the time, and good chatting with you as always.
It's a pleasure, Alex. Thanks so much.